What began as a missing persons call would soon unravel into one of the most chilling family betrayals America has ever seen. A forbidden love. A father's brutal death. A teenage daughter at the center of it all. But behind the headlines lies a deeper, darker truth the world never fully heard, until now. This is the full untold story of the Frier family tragedy, uncovered from every angle, with revelations and perspectives no one else dared to reveal. Only here, on our channel, will you experience the complete breakdown of how love turned to murder, and the devastating secrets left in its wake. Get ready.
Welcome to Dark Chronicles, where shadows hide the truth.
Sometimes, a simple phone call shatters a lifetime. On October 2, 2017, in the quiet city of Medford, Oregon, a desperate 911 call came through the early morning fog. A woman named Maggie Frier was on the line. Her two younger children had just shown up at her house, terrified, and told her something unthinkable: their father, Aaron Frier, was gone. Their older sister, Ellie, was gone too. Maggie's voice trembled as she begged for help. And with that one call, a nightmare began that would haunt an entire community. When officers arrived at Aaron's house on Benson Street, it looked like just another welfare check. But the moment they stepped inside, everything changed. Blood everywhere. Spattered on the walls. Pooled into the dirt outside. A living room torn apart by violence. Shattered glass. A trail of chaos. Aaron's car missing. And not a single soul inside. Detectives knew immediately, they weren't looking at an accident. They were looking at a crime scene soaked in blood and mystery, and the two people who should have been there, Aaron and 15-year-old Ellie, had vanished. The race against time had started, and Medford was about to be ripped open by a story far more twisted than anyone could have imagined. Before that morning, Aaron Frier was seen by many as a good father. A man raising his three daughters after a painful divorce from Maggie. The split had been rough, emotions ran deep, but Aaron stayed involved. He loved his daughters, especially Ellie, a bright young musician who played multiple instruments and marched proudly in the school band. Life after the divorce wasn't perfect. The family was adjusting. Custody arrangements. Weekend visits. Shifting loyalties between parents. The usual growing pains, or so it seemed, because behind the scenes, something darker was brewing, something that would tear the Frier family apart forever. After the discovery at the house, detectives moved fast. They cleared the home. Searched every room. Interviewed neighbors, but the key witness turned out to be someone they least expected. 11-year-old Sierra Frier, Ellie's little sister. Sierra told investigators she had been asleep that night, sharing a room with her younger sister. Around 5:30 in the morning, she woke up to strange noises, a dinging sound, shattering glass, and something even more chilling, her father shouting the F word, dragging sounds, furniture scraping, and then, complete, paralyzing silence. Frozen in fear, Sierra stayed hidden until the sun began to rise. When she finally crept out of her room, what she found stunned her: the couch, soaked in blood, no sign of her father. No sign of Ellie, and something else. Out her bedroom window, she had seen two figures moving in the dark, two young men, one, a stranger, the other, someone all too familiar, Gavin McFarland, Ellie's boyfriend. That was the break investigators needed. Forbidden love has a way of lighting matches where gasoline has already been spilled. Ellie had been secretly dating Gavin McFarland, a 19-year-old, a relationship her parents strongly opposed. Aaron, especially, had forbidden her from seeing Gavin. Tensions in the house escalated. Rules were broken. Fights erupted, and now, with Aaron missing, Ellie missing, and Gavin's name suddenly on the radar, detectives knew where to turn. They began tracking Gavin's phone. His signals pinged across East Medford, leading officers into the early morning streets. Soon, they found Aaron's missing car, parked under a carport. Blood streaked down the bumper. Blood soaked into the trunk's carpet, but no Aaron inside. No Ellie, and the engine was still warm. That told detectives one thing: they were close. And then, almost unbelievably, an hour later, they found them, Ellie and Gavin, walking casually down a busy street, in plain sight, like nothing had ever happened. It was a surreal sight, the missing girl and her forbidden boyfriend, casually strolling alongside another young man. later identified as Russell Jones, a friend of Gavin's. Police swept them up immediately, separating the trio for questioning. What had started as a missing persons case had now exploded into a possible murder investigation, and time was running out to find Aaron, dead or alive. Ellie's interrogation began gently. She told detectives she had simply gone for a long walk. Claimed she had run into Gavin and Russell by chance, said she had no idea where her father was, said she had no clue about the blood smeared all over the house, but her story didn't sit right, and investigators weren't buying it. Meanwhile, Russell Jones, the third person found with Gavin and Ellie, was far more talkative. All he wanted was a cigarette, and as smoke curled into the morning air, so did his story. Russell said they had gone to Aaron's house early that morning to help Ellie escape a bad situation. According to Russell, Aaron was not a good man. He didn't elaborate. But the implication was chilling. Russell insisted he and Gavin were just there to move Ellie out secretly. No violence planned, no blood expected. But as Detective Bill Ford leaned in, he pressed Russell harder. "If you're lying, we'll find out." Russell stared him dead in the eye and admitted, "95% of what I said is true. 5% is a lie." And that's when the truth started to unravel. With Russell's partial confession dangling in the air, Detective Ford pushed harder. He asked Russell if he could take them to Aaron. Without hesitation, Russell said yes. Officers loaded him into a police vehicle and followed his directions out of the city, climbing into the rugged mountain passes 20 miles from town. Russell pointed to a bend in the road and told them to stop. Beneath a green tarp, tucked into the woods, detectives found what they feared most, the lifeless body of Aaron Frier. The discovery confirmed their worst suspicions. This wasn't just a missing persons case. This was cold-blooded murder. Back at the station, Maggie Frier received the devastating news that her ex-husband was dead. She hadn't even been told that Ellie was found alive, nor that she was in police custody, being questioned without a parent or lawyer present. Her fear for her daughter now twisted into anger. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the horror of that night had roots stretching back much further than anyone knew. Detectives quickly separated Gavin, Ellie, and Russell for full interrogations. Ellie insisted she didn't know where her father was. Gavin, after hours of pressure, admitted something chilling. He claimed that Aaron had threatened him before. That Aaron was abusive, violent, and had made death threats because Gavin, at 19, was dating Aaron's 15-year-old daughter. Gavin painted himself as a victim of intimidation. But when pressed, his story shifted. Gavin confessed that on the morning of October 2nd, Aaron hadn't attacked him at all. Instead, Aaron was asleep on the living room couch. Gavin crept into the house, armed with a baseball bat. In the darkness, he swung. Again and again. He struck Aaron in the head at least 5 times with brutal force. The forensic evidence matched his confession. The bat, recovered later, was covered in blood. Aaron had died from blunt force trauma. The echoes of those violent blows matched the strange dinging sound Sierra had heard that night. But the story didn't end with Gavin's confession. Because police soon uncovered something even darker, the murder had been premeditated. Inside Gavin's home, investigators found handwritten notes. Pages of detailed plans labeled Plan A and Plan B, plotting Aaron's murder. Some notes were in Russell's handwriting. Others tied directly to Gavin. And the name that kept surfacing in every chilling plan: Ellie Frier. According to detectives, Ellie wasn't just aware of the plans, she was pushing them forward. Text messages recovered from Ellie's phone revealed shocking statements. In one, she wrote to Gavin, "We need to make sure he's dead before we leave the house." In another, she asked, "You can kill him in less than a minute, right?" These weren't the words of a bystander. They were the words of someone orchestrating the crime from the inside. Detective Ford, a seasoned investigator, believed Ellie had manipulated Gavin into committing murder. Gavin himself later claimed he didn't want to kill Aaron, but felt pressured by Ellie's emotional hold over him. During her long interrogation, Ellie lied repeatedly. About her age. About her knowledge of the murder. About how Gavin entered the house. Eventually, after hours of questioning, she admitted her role. She confessed to handing Gavin the murder weapon. She even said the words that sealed her fate, "I told him, I'm ready when you are." Meaning she was ready for her father to die. The pieces of the puzzle began locking into place. 3 young people, Ellie, Gavin, and Russell, caught in a web of lies, forbidden love, and murder. And the public wanted answers. As the investigation unfolded, another layer of complexity emerged. Ellie claimed she had been abused by her father, physically, emotionally, and sexually. In police interviews, she detailed disturbing allegations. Aaron allegedly touched her inappropriately, pinned her against walls, called her horrific names, and, in the darkest moments, assaulted her while she pretended to sleep. These accusations were horrifying. If true, they would cast the entire tragedy in a new light. But there was a problem. Investigators found no physical evidence to support Ellie's claims. No prior reports of abuse. No documentation. None of Ellie's friends reported hearing about sexual abuse, only complaints of strict parenting, harsh discipline, and fighting over her relationship with Gavin. Even her younger sisters, Sierra and the youngest Frier daughter, told police they never witnessed abuse. They insisted that what Ellie called abuse was really just punishment, being grounded, having her phone taken away, being yelled at for sneaking around. Detective Ford, hardened by years of chasing difficult cases, remained deeply skeptical. He believed Ellie had fabricated the abuse allegations to manipulate Gavin into killing her father. He believed it was all part of the plan. But Ellie's new legal team saw things differently. Defense attorney Elisa Kaplan, who later joined Ellie's case, argued that the system had failed a vulnerable child. She pointed to Ellie's age, 15 years old. She highlighted the coercive, controlling influence Gavin had over her. Gavin was nearly 20. An adult. Ellie was still a minor. Kaplan argued that Ellie's actions were those of a scared, traumatized teenager desperate to survive, not a cold-blooded mastermind. The case ripped the community apart. Some believed Ellie was a ruthless planner, using Gavin as a weapon against her father. Others saw her as a victim herself, trapped between an abusive parent and a manipulative boyfriend. But the courtroom doesn't decide based on sympathy. It decides on evidence. And the evidence was damning. Ellie's text messages, her confession, the murder plans, they painted a devastating picture. In January 2019, Ellie Frier took a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder as an adult. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Gavin McFarland also took a plea deal, admitting to murder and conspiracy. He received 25 years to life. Russell Jones, the third accomplice, pleaded no contest to conspiracy and was sentenced to 15 years. Today, Ellie Frier remains behind bars. She has earned 2 master's degrees while incarcerated, one in psychology, another in justice studies. Supporters say she's a survivor. A fighter. Others say she's simply paying the price for a life she chose to destroy. Meanwhile, Sierra Frier, who once woke up to the sounds of her father's murder, has grown up. She joined the National Guard, chasing the dreams her father once had for her. In public, she speaks sparingly about Ellie, guarding her words, her pain stitched quietly behind her strong smile. But about her father, Sierra is clear. He was a kind man. She says, "He filled our lives with joy." In the end, the truth about what happened inside that house on Benson Street may never be fully known. Abuse or no abuse? Manipulation or survival? Love or betrayal? One fact remains: a father is dead. A family is broken. And a once promising young girl now watches her life unfold behind prison walls. The aftermath of Aaron Frier's death left a scar not only on his family but on the entire city of Medford. In the days following the arrests, the media exploded with theories. Some headlines painted Ellie as a cold-blooded mastermind who had seduced her older boyfriend into murder. Others suggested she was a frightened victim of years of hidden abuse. Online forums ignited with speculation. Was Gavin truly the dominant force, pulling Ellie into a deadly spiral? Or was Ellie far more cunning than her age suggested, And what about Russell Jones, the so-called friend who helped dispose of Aaron's body? Was he just a follower, or did he know more than he ever let slip? No matter which side people fell on, one thing was certain: the truth had become tangled in a web of fear, lies, and broken trust. Inside the courtroom, prosecutors laid out their case with precision. They presented the text messages, the murder plans, the confessions. They showed how Ellie had urged Gavin forward, how Russell had assisted in the cover-up. They emphasized that without Ellie's encouragement, without her willing participation, Aaron Frier might still be alive. Meanwhile, the defense struggled to tell a different story, a story of a girl trapped by fear, lured by an older man who promised love and escape. They pointed to Gavin's letters to Ellie after their arrests, letters where he coached her on how to cry for the jury, how to spin the abuse narrative to win sympathy. In those private notes, Gavin's manipulative streak was undeniable. Yet for the jury, and for the court of public opinion, the evidence was stacked too heavily against Ellie. In the years that followed the sentencing, debate raged on. Was justice truly served? Critics of the system argued that punishing a 15-year-old girl as harshly as a grown man was unjust. Advocates pointed to the calculated nature of the murder, the clear evidence that Ellie had played an active role. Even seasoned detectives like Bill Ford admitted they wrestled with doubts. At times, Ford believed Ellie had masterminded the whole thing. At other times, especially after reading Gavin's letters, he wondered if Gavin had been the true puppet master, with Ellie merely trying to survive. Detective Shannon Reynolds, Ford's wife and partner, confessed she too went back and forth. The only thing everyone agreed on was that without Ellie, Gavin, and Russell together, Aaron Frier would still be alive. The tragedy devastated Maggie Frier, who had to bury her ex-husband and watch her daughter taken away in handcuffs, accused of orchestrating his death. It splintered the sisters. Sierra, who had once idolized her older sibling, now carried deep wounds that words couldn't heal. Though Sierra maintained a relationship with Ellie through prison visits and letters, the shadow of that night never left them. Sierra rarely spoke publicly about the events, preferring to honor her father's memory quietly. When asked directly about Ellie's accusations of abuse, Sierra simply said she had her own feelings and chose to keep them private. Her loyalty to her father, however, was unmistakable. She described Aaron as a loving, devoted parent who worked hard to fill their lives with joy, not fear. Meanwhile, Ellie's life behind bars followed a different path. She focused on education, earning 2 master's degrees, one in psychology, one in justice studies, despite the crushing realities of prison life. Her attorneys continued to fight for sentence reductions, arguing that her punishment was excessive for a crime committed as a minor. Supporters portrayed Ellie as a rehabilitated young woman, someone who had grown beyond her tragic past. Detractors saw it differently, believing that her education and good behavior didn't erase the brutal death of her father or the irreparable harm caused to her family. Every appeal, every news story about Ellie's case, reopened old wounds for the Frier family and the Medford community, beyond the personal battles. The case raised broader questions about how society treats juvenile offenders. Should a 15-year-old be held to the same standard as a 20-year-old? What role does trauma play in culpability? How much weight should be given to allegations of abuse when there is no physical evidence to prove or disprove them? In the end, the legal system gave its answer, but the moral questions lingered, messy, unresolved, and painful. And what of Gavin McFarland? After his conviction, he disappeared into the adult prison system, serving his time quietly. Few outside the case ever heard his name again. Unlike Ellie, Gavin didn't generate sympathy. His relationship with a minor, his manipulation, and ultimately his violence sealed his reputation in the public's mind as a predator who preyed on a vulnerable girl. Yet behind closed doors, some investigators still wondered, was Gavin a monster? Or a weak young man who let rage and fear consume him? Russell Jones, the least discussed of the trio, served a 15-year sentence for his role. His cooperation with authorities helped him avoid harsher punishment, but in many ways, he remained the story's enigma, a man who inserted himself into a deadly plan but left far fewer traces behind. His motivations, his true knowledge of the night's events, might never be fully understood. Was he just a follower, dragged into someone else's nightmare? Or did he know exactly what was happening and help make it happen? For the Frier family, however, such questions bring little comfort. What matters most is what was lost: a father, a sense of innocence, and a future that could never be restored. Aaron Frier's memory now lives on through his daughters, particularly Sierra, who carries the weight of both survival and grief. She joined the National Guard, pursuing a path her father once dreamed of for her, proof that even in the aftermath of unimaginable tragedy, resilience can bloom. As Sierra herself said, "He goes with me wherever I go." Those words echo louder than any courtroom verdict or public debate. In the end, the yogurt shop murder, the rumors of satanic cults, the conspiracy theories, none of those things mattered here. What mattered was a family torn apart by betrayal, love twisted into violence, and the long, slow work of healing scars no one can see. The house on Benson Street has since been sold. Fresh paint covers the walls. New lives have moved into the space where blood once stained the floorboards. But for those who lived through that terrible morning, the ghosts remain. Sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn, when the world feels too still, you can almost hear the echoes, a glass shattering, a scream swallowed by darkness, and the fading footsteps of lives forever changed. The ripples of Aaron Frier's murder extended far beyond the family and courtroom walls. In Medford, Oregon, whispers turned into debates. And debates grew into endless theories. The local media dissected every angle, trying to answer questions no one truly could. Was Ellie a master manipulator, twisting an older boyfriend into carrying out her deadly wishes? Or was she a teenager drowning under years of hidden suffering, desperate for escape at any cost? Those who sided with Ellie pointed to the lack of evidence proving her father's innocence behind closed doors. They spoke of trauma's invisible wounds, of survival instincts that defy logic. Those who stood by Aaron's memory called her claims baseless, a cruel smear against a man who could no longer defend himself. They remembered him as a kind father, a man who encouraged his daughters to chase their dreams. A man who never had the chance to walk them down the aisle or see their futures unfold. Meanwhile, online forums lit up with conspiracy theories. Some insisted that Gavin McFarland had manipulated Ellie from the start, using his age and experience to control her emotions. Others speculated about darker undercurrents, secret abuse, hidden pregnancies, even suggestions of cult-like influence, though none of those theories ever held weight outside of late-night speculation. True crime enthusiasts picked apart text messages, court transcripts, police reports. Every word, every choice, every lie Ellie told in those early hours was scrutinized, analyzed, and argued over endlessly. One undeniable fact fueled the controversy: Ellie's lies during the initial investigation were numerous and obvious. She lied about her age. She lied about how Gavin entered the house. She lied about the timeline. And though teenagers often lie when scared, these weren't simple cover-ups. They were strategic lies, built to obscure her role in a violent death. Still, the question that haunted everyone remained: why? Was it fear of continued abuse, real or imagined? Was it the intoxicating pull of forbidden love? Was it immaturity spiraling into catastrophe? Or was it something darker, a calculated decision by a girl who wanted freedom at any price? In the years since the sentencing, Ellie's legal team has continued to push for clemency, arguing that her age, the trauma she allegedly endured, and her rehabilitative efforts in prison all warrant a second chance. They point to her academic achievements behind bars as proof of her transformation. 2 master's degrees earned while locked away. A testament to resilience. A sign of hope, but critics argue that achievements cannot erase the past. A degree does not undo a murder. No diploma restores a father stolen by violence. No transcript rewrites the brutal truth carved into October 2, 2017. And so, Ellie Frier remains a figure trapped between 2 narratives: the victim who survived or the villain who betrayed. Perhaps she is both. Perhaps neither. The truth, like so much in this case, slips through fingers like smoke. Gavin McFarland, too, faded into obscurity behind prison walls. Once the center of the investigation, he became almost a ghost, swallowed by the system. Occasionally, his name resurfaces in legal filings, but for most of Medford, he is an uncomfortable memory, a face they would rather forget. His plea deal spared him a life sentence without parole, but it did not spare him a life defined by what he did. 25 years to life, a sentence long enough to bury dreams but short enough to leave room for debate about redemption. Russell Jones, the accomplice who guided detectives to Aaron's hidden body, served as a grim reminder of how easily bystanders can become participants. He cooperated. He confessed. Yet he also taunted police during his interrogation, mocking their efforts to get the full truth. Was he motivated by loyalty, fear, or thrill-seeking? Russell never fully explained his role, leaving behind a portrait of a young man caught somewhere between follower and conspirator, someone who helped dismantle a family and then faded into the background, largely forgotten by the public. For Sierra Frier, the middle daughter who witnessed the aftermath but not the crime itself, life has been a complicated journey. She carries the weight of her father's death every day. She honors his memory through her service in the National Guard, striving to live the life he once dreamed for her. She visits Ellie when she can, maintaining a fragile connection rooted more in shared blood than shared trust. When asked directly about her sister, Sierra answers carefully, guarding her words, protecting her heart. Pain still lingers, wrapped around every memory, every photograph, every birthday missed. The city of Medford, too, has never fully healed. Though new families moved into the house where Aaron Frier's life ended, though time scrubbed away the bloodstains, an invisible scar remains. Locals remember. They remember the headlines, the vigils, the whispered prayers. They remember the sense of innocence shattered by something so brutal happening just down the street. They remember the debates, angry, passionate, unresolved. And they remember the young faces, Ellie, Gavin, Russell, kids who made choices that spun out of control and destroyed lives in the process. Today, when people drive past Benson Street, they might not know the history hidden behind the fresh paint and tidy gardens. But for those who lived through that autumn of horror, the memories remain vivid. Every October, as the leaves turn and the nights grow longer, some wonder if the echoes of that night still drift through the cool Oregon air, the sound of shattered glass, the thud of betrayal, the silence of innocence lost. The story of Ellie Frier is a tragedy without a clean ending. It's a story about love twisted into something deadly. About trust shattered beyond repair. About children making adult decisions with consequences they could never fully comprehend. About a community forced to confront uncomfortable truths about justice, punishment, and forgiveness. In the final accounting, there are no winners here. Only survivors. Aaron Frier's life ended violently, and the man he was, father, musician, mentor, was buried beneath layers of grief, accusations, and courtroom battles. His daughters, once bound by laughter and music, are now separated by prison walls and emotional scars. Gavin McFarland and Russell Jones live out their sentences, footnotes in a case that refused to fade quietly. And Ellie? Ellie sits in her cell, degrees in hand, dreams suspended, a future uncertain. Some see her as proof that people can change. Others see her as proof that some mistakes are too great to undo. Perhaps both views are true. Perhaps neither. What remains undeniable is the cost. A life lost. A family broken. A city forever marked by a morning that began with a simple welfare check, and ended in the darkest kind of betrayal. And as the years stretch onward, as time moves like a slow river over old wounds, one question will always linger in the minds of those who remember. Was it love that led to murder, or was it something far more terrifying? The realization that sometimes, the monsters we fear most are the ones we once called family.
So, that's how crimes end, and if you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on the notifications. If you want me to do some special crimes in all over the world, comment down below, or you can send us direct through email, and I will see you in all my videos. See ya!